And I'm just taking my colored pencil and I'm tipping it onto the side so that it's coloring like this instead of like this. All right, we don't want it up on the point. We want it on the side. And this is just so that we can see how our blending tools are going to work today with the colored pencils. So go ahead and get a couple colors on there. And then we'll talk about blending. There's a couple different things that we can do. All right, I'm going to zoom in on that little square of purple and blue that I have done. Now, there's 3 different ways we can do this. I mean, 4 really. If you have a blending stump, a paper stump that's totally clean and has no pencil marks on it at all from other sketching, then you could use that. And sometimes I do, but today I'm choosing not to. So you can also use your finger. And since we drew the color on side to side to side to side, I'm actually going to blend the other direction. And I'm going to go up and down. And I'm going to apply a fair amount of pressure. And that should start blending that color. You can see that this is a lot more foggy looking and blended than over here where it's not. And it also made my finger nice and purple. So that's one way that we can do it. Another way is to use a tissue. So I'm going to use a clean tissue and I'm going to put my finger on it, turn it over so that that way it's kind of wrapped around my finger. This would spare my finger from getting all purple like it just did. And now I'm going to do the same thing, going the opposite direction. And this is working even better. You can see that it's actually bringing some of the color out of where I drew it. You can see that it's bringing it up here. It's blending it up onto the white. Down here, you can see it's created this kind of foggy look. And that's because it is pulling it from the tissue and pulling it to different parts of the paper. So that's another way we can do it. And then the last way that we're going to try today is with a cotton swab. All right, and now the cotton swab, it's kind of hard to do just up and down because it's such a small area. So we'll just do a little bit. This is probably not my favorite for this because it would take so long with how much you'd have to cover, and the cotton swab is so small. But for the purposes of like my tree right here, if I hadn't blended the background first and I thought, oh, I got to blend that, then a cotton swab is going to be really, really good for that because I can get really close to my dark shades where my finger might be a little too big and a little more difficult to get in there. So it's still a really useful tool in some circumstances, but I wouldn't use it to cover a really big area. But now you can see that that blended that whole little area in there. All right, so those are 3 different ways that we could do it today for if you have a clean paper stump, which most of you probably don't. All right, so now we're ready to actually begin our picture for the day. So I'm going to start with a clean piece of paper. Oh my goodness, I got dirty papers. Okay, so now we are going to just draw the horizon. And the horizon is where the sky meets the ground. And it's pretty low on this one because we want to see so much of that sunset happening that we want the landscape to be pretty low. So we're going to just lightly draw in a line going across the bottom. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. All right, if it's too straight, then it will look, if you used a ruler, which you could do, it would look a little unnatural. So now we're going to draw in a couple of spots where we want some trees to go, just so we have a guideline for that. So we're going to have one that is coming off, a really big one right in the center. And again, we're doing a really light line. Now next to that, we're going to have 2 smaller ones. So one that's coming almost straight up, and then this next one to it is going to kind of be curving the other way. So now we have 3 lines here for our trees. We also are going to have a tiny little one way back here, such a tiny little line. And that one would be just as big as the others, but we're giving perspective to our picture. We're giving it depth so that we can see things farther away and closer up. All right, then we have another straight one here and maybe another 2 right here. So however you want to do it, you guys, you can put in as many palm trees as you'd like. And you may change your mind as we actually start putting the background in. You may decide you want more or less. All right, we are ready to begin with our color. Let's take a look at that picture again. And let's talk about what colors we're going to use at the top. So the very top, we have a really, really light blue. And then it's going to fade into our darker shades of blue. So I actually have 3 different blues that I'm going to be using. And you can see that it's not perfectly straight. It's kind of coming at a diagonal to the right, where it's coming down farther on the right side than the left. So what we will do is start with our lightest color of blue. And again, we're not going to be drawing with it straight up and down. We need to tip it on its side so that across the paper, it's going to go on the side. And we're going to start at the very top of the paper. And we're going to start filling in some of that light blue. Now it's so light, you can hardly see it. But we do want to fill some in there. And this is just a regular shading method. We are not, I mean, you can scrumble it if you would like, but we're definitely not hatching or cross hatching or doing dots or anything like that. We just want regular shading method. All right. So now I've got some of my light blue. It's so light you can hardly see it. Yours is probably like that too. But now I'm going to go to a medium color. And what I want to do with these colors is overlap them. So imagine that I have done my one color. I'm going to go over that color again, and it deepens the color. It makes it very, very cool. It gives it lots of really cool looks to it. So right below that, we're going to start with our medium. And as I overlap with my light one, I'm going to use less pressure because I want it to blend really well. And try to get it all the way to the edges of your paper if you can. Sometimes that's difficult. So just get as close as you can. All right, now we talked about how it came down farther down on this side. So I'm going to take where I've got my dark blue, I'm applying more pressure, right, to make it darker. I'm going to be bringing that down to the side, lower on this side than on the other side. And then on the outside of where I've done it darker, I'm going to do just some light ones next to it because, again, I'm going to blend that with my next color. All right, you guys are doing great. So now I've used my light blue and my medium blue, and I'm ready to move on to my dark blue. If you don't have a dark blue, you could start using your purple at this point, but I do have a dark blue. So I'm going to go on the bottom of that, and I'm going to start applying some pressure to make it fairly dark. And I'm bringing it down to the side over here. I don't know if you guys have ever actually watched a sunset like this, but the colors go everywhere and it's not all uniform. You don't see just all the blue in one spot and all of the pink in one spot, kind of playing together, mixing all over the place, which is really fun. All right. So now I am going to go back through and do a little bit of scrumbling on top of this, just to make sure that I've got my color going both ways. The same way that when we went this direction and then we blended the opposite direction, I'm going to do the same thing with my pencil, just to make sure that it's getting a little bit more blended and a little bit more into the grooves of the paper. Depending on what kind of paper you're using, you actually may have to do this with quite a bit of your page with a lot of your colors to make sure that they're blending together. Some artistic paper is a little more grainy and it's hard to get the color to get right inside there.
Are you using your dark blue to do that?
I am, but I'm not pressing very hard because I don't want like dark blue everywhere. But I am scrumbling and I'm doing it just kind of like a medium to light pressure. And another thing that does is it's giving it more of a cloud look, because our clouds are a little more fluffy and have roundness to them as opposed to just being straight lines going across. Sometimes they're like that, but in this picture, they're not. All right. I'm going to hold on to my blue for a little bit later because we're going to use some highlights for it down at the bottom once we get the rest of that on. All right, next color is going to be our purples. All right, so if you have some purples, pull those out. I actually have 3 purples. I have this kind of magenta, almost like a pink purple color, and then a light purple and a dark purple. All right, so I'm actually going to start with my dark purple first because we ended with our dark blue, and I want those to blend together. So I'm going to tip it to its side so that it's going against the paper. I'm going to get right up by my dark blue, and I'm going to start adding some color in there. I am applying quite a bit of pressure because I want to get the darker shade of my pencil, and I am going over the dark blue. I'm overlapping them. I don't really want a lot of white to happen in between the two, so that's why we overlap. We want it to look like a smooth transition of color. All right, now how we came down on the side over here, what's going to happen is we're actually going to do a little bit of a swoop back, because sometimes we have the color going back and forth in our picture. So we're going to take this purple and we're going to bring a swoop coming this way. There's probably a more technical term than swoop, but that's what I'm going to call it. All right, and then I'm going back through it and I'm scrumbling with that purple right over my blue, and that is blending it together nicely. And it actually should go on fairly quick. If you're feeling like you're a ways behind, you might be taking a little too much time putting your color on, and you don't actually have to overthink it too much because we're going to blend it all together. All right, so I'm going to go in with my medium purple. Oh, it looks like it's almost the exact same shade that I had before. So I'll just put a little bit of that on and then move to my next one. Yours hopefully is a little bit more of a difference than mine. Mine is not. All right, my third purple color that I have is this magenta color. It's like a pink, purpley red color, which is really fun. All right, so this one we're actually going to be putting in 2 spots. So first we'll go back to the purple that I had here, and I'm going to add some of that in with it, blending over and overlapping the color. I'm going to come down and add some to that swoop that we added in. And then I'm actually going to add some on this section down here. So I'm going to come right by my horizon, and I'm going to add kind of a triangular shape, but I don't want it to be perfect. So I'm going to scrumble that a little bit to make it imperfect. And I'm going to go back over and scrumble that color in to make sure that I've got lots of it. That's a pretty color. All right. So we've done the blue and we've done the purple. The next thing that's going to happen is a contrasting color to the purple, which is orange. All right, there's lots of orange and yellow and red in our sunset. Now my orange is kind of like a pumpkin-y orange, maybe a little darker than pumpkin orange, but whatever orange you have should work. And we're gonna go right here in this section, okay? So right where we've overlapped these colors, we're actually gonna start with our orange right there. And I'm going to apply quite a bit of pressure because I want it to be a good contrast between the two. And I am scrumbling that in there and coming down a little bit so that some of that orange is there by itself and not overlapping on the purple. All right, there's a couple other places where we'll be putting this orange. We're going to be coming right above our little pie shape that we made right here. We'll be putting some right there, just on the top of it. Just a little band right there. You can overlap it. All right, and then another area that we're going to put it is right here in this section. because we want to have balance with our colors. So we're going to balance it out. If I just left the oranges over here, it probably looked just fine. Once we add it here, it kind of anchors the picture together and gives it more balance and symmetry. So we're going to go ahead and add some here. All right, we're starting to get some awesome colors on here. All right, the next thing that we're going to add is some red. And the red is going to go in almost all of the same places as the orange. It's just to help the orange come out a little bit darker. So right here where we overlapped with the orange and the purple, I'm going to go right there and add a little bit of the red. I am scrumbling this on because at this point we're layering. When we're putting down base color, it's good to go side to side. When we're layering, it's good to scrumble. Right? So you can see how that is helping that orange blend right into that purple, and it's giving some really interesting color right there. So now it's got a different look to it. All right, I'm going to bring that into my purple a little bit farther even. Maybe I'll bring it all the way over here. That is looking very nice. Now where we put our orange over here, where we anchored down here, we're going to go on the side of that and blend them together. So since I'm adding just that color at first, I'm going side to side to add it in and then scrumbling on top to layer. And I'm going to continue with some red down here. So I'm connecting my pie shape that I made over here with where we anchored. We're going to put some red there. Now, since that is all the way down at our very, very bottom of the sky, I'm going to tip my pencil up a little bit so that I can get more definition with a line right there. Now look at the difference between that line, how dark that is, and all of this up here. It all has to do with how you're holding your pencil. So the more you tip it up and the more control and pressure you can apply down onto your pencil, then the darker and more defined you can make your lines. I'm going to continue that all the way across. Because now we have connected our sky to the land. Awesome. That's going to be such a fun contrast where up here, we're all nice and flowy and there's really no definition of where this ends. This is a definite abrupt ending right there. All right, then we're going to do just a little bit right here on my little swoop that came over. I'm just going to do a little bit on the top of this swoop, really lightly. I just want a little bit there, just to carry those colors around. All of this where you're making the colors go from side to side, this is contrast and balance, and that's stuff that's really important in your picture. It can look fine without it, but it makes it amazing when you figure out how to balance the colors really well. All right, the next thing is yellow. All right, I have 2 shades of yellow. I have one that's like an ochre, it's almost like a mustardy yellow, and then I have one that's a light yellow. So I'm going to start with the light yellow first. So our light yellow is going to be in this area right here. There's going to be a big contrast because we're going to have a very light section coming across here as opposed to this purpley area. And it also comes down here a little bit, right? So since we're going straight onto the paper and applying the base color, we're going to go side to side with our pencil. I am going to go right into that red-orange blob in the middle, and I'm going to go right up into that purple so that I'm overlapping. And I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to put some there as well. I want quite a bit of that yellow. The yellow makes it so pretty. We're going to bring it down that swoop, adding color there and blending into the red and orange that we've added onto the swoop there. Now it's all starting to blend together, which is looking great. This little section in here needs some yellow. So we'll start up here Maybe yours are already connected together, and that's fine. You can just put some right on top and go into your section that is white. I'm going to bring it down here towards the bottom where I've got my reds and oranges. And then I'm going to use a little bit lighter pressure to fill in a little bit more of the white. I want this area to be a darker yellow where it's touching the red and the orange, a little bit lighter of a touch as you go into the middle. All right, we're ready for our darker yellow. All right, so I have this mustardy yellow. If you don't have a darker yellow, you could just continue adding some more of your yellow, but use a darker, use more pressure so you can get a darker color. All right, so I'm going to come into where I did my light yellow and my orange red little blob that's right here, and I'm going to scrumble some on top of that to help blend that section together. Going right over that red and that orange. So you can imagine layer upon layer how many layers are in this section alone. You're probably on your 4th layer right there. And we're going to come down to this yellow down here, and we're going to start at the bottom where we're closer to the orange and the red, overlapping and applying a bit of pressure there to make sure that we can bring that yellow in and that it can be seen on top of that orange and the red. And right here where our little triangular pie shaped piece and our swoop meet, I'm going to go right over that purple with some of this yellow so that it starts to blend together better. All right, so we still should have a little bit of white area over here. And I am actually going to use a white colored pencil to help blend all of this together. So I'm going to go right into that white area, and that may seem silly to put white colored pencil on the white paper, but it does help blend everything. So I am going to put some on there, and I am tipping it to the side because I am putting on the base color there. Now watch what happens. I want you to look at this little blob that you've added down here. Go over it side to side the same way we do with the bottom layer. Go over it with a little bit of pressure with your white and watch what happens. With my pencils, it starts to take down a lot of the grainy look to it and really, really blends everything together, makes it nice and soft. Now yours hopefully are doing the same. This is one reason why I like this type of colored pencil, because it seems a little more creamy and easy to blend, but not all our colored pencils are like that. So you may not be getting the same effect. I'm going to go right into that yellow, blending in there and scrumbling so that I'm just helping all of these colors mix together. So this is just with your white. If you don't have a white, a really, really light yellow may work. You could possibly use like a light tan color or cream. Those would all work for this. I'm going to continue using this pencil all the way up. So I'm scrumbling and moving side to side. So first of all, I'm just going to go over these going side to side. This is why I need my pencil sharpener, because I will use quite a bit. I'll make it flat because I'm doing it on the side. I'm going side to side. If you're getting it too flat on one side, flip it over. Use the other side of your pencil before you sharpen it. That is looking so nice. It's helping kind of smooth everything out. Gives it a really pretty flow between all the colors. Now that should have gotten your entire paper. You should be about at the point where I am. If you're just a little behind, it's okay. If you're way behind, that's also okay. All right, I've got a pretty smooth look going on here, but I'm gonna look at this little purpley area right here. It's got a little bit more crayon look to it, and I want it to be smoother. So you see the difference between this purple and my yellow area down here. I'm just gonna go right over that with my pencil, scrumbling with my white pencil. And that is gonna help soften that up. So if you imagine when you're painting a house and you put a top coat of paint on, or let's say you're painting, you're putting some stain on some wood floors. Your parents may have done this. And then at the very, very end, they put a top coat on it, like a clear coat. It's kind of what you're doing with this white, putting a top layer on there that is just helping smooth everything out. So that's helped a lot. All right. I think we are ready to use our tissue. So go ahead and get your tissue ready. If you don't want to use a tissue, you can use your finger, but just be forewarned, you're going to get those colors on your finger. So you're going to want to go wash your fingers after we're done with class. Okay, so let me get my tissue ready. Now I have used it already and it has purple on it. So you may have to change it to a clean one or move it to a clean part every once in a while. So I wrap it around my finger, and I'm not gonna go side to side because that is the way that we put most of our color on, this way. I wanna go opposite. So I'm gonna go up and down, and I'm gonna apply a fair amount of pressure to this. That means you're pressing pretty hard. Not hard enough you're gonna rip your paper. This is just one extra step that helps, just like the white helped smooth a lot of those pencil marks and where it looks a little more like crayon. It smooths it together. This may make your arm tired. After a little while, this usually makes my arm tired. And I do it a lot, so if your arm gets tired and you need to take a break, take a break. That is looking very nice. Okay, we are ready for the final part of our picture, which is awesome because we're at the end of class. So this part actually goes faster than anything. So I'm going to use one of my dark colors. And again, I said I have a dark black, I have ivory black, I have brown umber, burnt umber, which is really, really dark brown, and indigo. So that's like a dark purpley blue. I'm going to start with my indigo. And I'm going to just come along the bottom here. I'm going to fill in down here, this whole little land area. Now yours may be more black, it may be more brown, just whatever dark color you have. Maybe you've got a dark purple, that would look really cool too. And this should go on pretty fast because you're tipping it to the side and doing your layering side to side, just like we usually did, up above. This is our base color. My camera keeps tipping on me while I'm going. Get as close to the bottom as you can. Sometimes I know that's hard. Just get as close as you can. Okay, I'm going to go over it with another dark color. So I'm going to use my dark brownish color. I'm just going to do another layer right over the top. This is a good point right now to see like how dark can you get it depending on how much pressure you add. You don't want to add so much pressure that you rip your paper, which is very easy to do. But you can actually get darker colors if you learn how to apply that pressure just enough. All right. I'm going to go over it with my last dark color, which was my black. Now it is ready to be blended with my tissue. Now, as you go up and down on this one, be really careful. What would happen if I went all the way up into my sky? I could get all of that black material, that dark material up in my sky. I don't want to do that. All right, so I'm gonna just kind of maybe go in a scrumbly motion because this is a smaller area. This might be a good place for you to use your Q-tip. And I probably will right where my ground touches my sky. All right, we're ready for trees. Now you may be a little stressed out about the trees. They are super easy, so don't stress out about it. You guys have done way more difficult things than palm trees. All right, so you should be able to see your guidelines a little bit from what we added earlier. We're gonna take one of our dark colors. I suggest using one that's not black yet, because black's gonna be the darkest color you can have. So let's start with one of the other ones. And we are going to just follow that line that we gave ourselves. And I am not doing it flat on the paper. I'm going up to the point of my pencil so I can get a really, really dark line. Okay, and then I'm gonna thicken that up because this tree stump is a little bit bigger. And they're bigger at the bottom than at the top. Okay, so make sure that you don't make it too wide and that it's wide all the way from the top to the bottom because they don't naturally grow like that. They're wider at the bottom and they are smaller at the top. All right, there's one. I'm gonna go in and put a couple of my other ones in. That's looking good. All right. And then I have two over here. You decide how many you have. But remember that you need to make the base wider than the top. And usually palm trees have a natural curve to them. The top of that palm tree gets really, really heavy. So they curve a little bit. All right, now we're gonna go back through with our second color, our second dark color. So not your black. You've got little crumbs on it like I did from your brushes, just brush that, from your pencils, brush it off. All right, so now we're just gonna go through and we're gonna add a little bit of that other color layering on top. Remember, we're tipping our pencil so that it's on the point of the pencil. That way we get more control over it and it gets a darker look to it, darker color. Okay, we also have at the bottom some grass that's coming out. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my black. I'm gonna do just a little bit of grass coming out at the bottom of each one. And let me show you how to do the leaves at the top, and then you'll be able to finish this project on your own at home. And if any of you finish it, please bring it back because I would love to see how it turns out. All right, so we're gonna look at this tree in the middle that I have here. And I will show you how to do some leaves on this guy. All right, so we're going to draw a few lines coming off of it, almost like those little weeds that are white and you can blow and make a wish and all the little white things come off of it. Or it looks kind of like a starburst. So I'm coming from the center and I'm bringing it down on a curve, bringing it out that way. Those are going to be the guidelines that we use for our leaves. And from that, we're going to just bring some lines off of it. All right, see that how easy that was? That was so easy. So we're just bringing some lines off of it. That really is doing all the hard work for me. It's telling me where to go because I drew that line already and I'm just following that line. And then I'm filling it in once I've got some on there. All right, these ones are going to come up. So just follow that line that you gave yourself. Making sure that when you come into the center, you're filling that area in. That's going to be a pretty big area where all those leaves come together. And my last one. All right, I know we didn't get all the way through this, but we got so much accomplished. And then next week we are doing an animal and we are doing Arctic foxes. So it's kind of like our wolf that we did, but they're white. They are so cute. All right, so that's what we're doing next week. And you don't need colored pencils, just regular sketching pencils. All right, you guys, see you next week.